Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. Before we take a look at your stories in detail, here are your headlines for tonight.
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Public Utilities Commission outlines plan to avoid power cuts.
එතකොට පාරේ ලයිට් එක 80ක් අඩු වුණා කියලා පාරට ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙනවා කියන අපිට අපේ ඩීසීඑස් එකේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි ඒක පාරේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඒක පළාත් පාලනයට බලා ගන්න ඕන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒක පාරේ කොහමද ඇවිදින්නේ කියන එක අපි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි.
Energy Minister welcomes fuel consignment purchased from India on credit. Activist Shehan Malaka granted bail by court.
තවට අපි දෙබරට කල් ගහලා ඉවරයි. තව මාසයක් දෙකක් ඇතුළත අපි අනිවාර්යෙන් මේක ජාත්‍යන්තරයට අරන් යනවාමයි.
Why are people demanding justice over the April 21st attacks being suppressed? Cardinal raises questions.
පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයේ කුමන්ත්‍රණකරුවන් නිදැල්ලේ ඉඳිද්දී පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයේ වින්දිතයන්ට යුක්තිය ඉල්ලා හඬ නගන අයව නිහඬ කර මර්ධනය කරන්න ගන්න මේ උත්සාහයන් මම පිළිකුල් සහගත ලෙස හෙලා දකිමි.
Healthcare workers temporarily call off strike. Government says EPF and ETF will be exempted from the surcharge tax. Opposition demands government to withdraw surcharge tax bill. Will Russia invade Ukraine tomorrow?
News First headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
New stories in detail now. The Public Utilities Commission has denied a request of the Ceylon Electricity Board to impose power cuts for a period of 3 months. The Commission said that the Ceylon Electricity Board can instead enforce strict regulations as an alternative move.
The uninterrupted power supply will be there for the next 3 months by reducing the generation of hydroelectricity by almost 50% and obtaining the standby generators of the private users into the national grid, and by limiting maybe usage of air conditioners in government sector as well as the private residencies in high rises in Colombo, and influencing the private sector organizations to use their own generators for their own electricity supply. We are quite sure that PUCSL can manage the situation without scheduled power interruption for the next 3 months.
Sri Lanka's daily demand for electricity stands at about 2,600 megawatts. This can be seen even on the website of the Ceylon Electricity Board as well. But if you take a look at how Sri Lanka obtains its power, out of this 2,600 megawatts, 800 megawatts can be obtained from the Norachole coal power plant. At the same time, we also have the option of going for renewable energy sources. We can obtain power from wind power plants, we can obtain power from solar power plants, and at the same time, hydropower plants as well. However, there is a certain limitation when it comes to solar power plants, because that can be used only within a selected time frame from morning until evening. Now, we need to draw your attention to the sequence of events that unfolded in late November and early December, because that was when the power crisis began unfolding in the country. During that period, Sri Lanka was facing two main issues. The first one being the dollar crisis. This meant Sri Lanka didn't have enough dollars to import fuel or essential items as well. At the same time, there was another issue that was crippling the energy and the power sector of our country. That was the strike or the trade union action launched by the CEB Engineers Union. They had launched this trade union action citing several demands. They were demanding the depoliticization of the appointment of the CEB general manager. They were also objecting to several restructural changes that were being made to the CEB, and even they opposed the agreement signed with the US company named New Fortress Energy to give away a 40% stake of the Kerawalapitia power plant. To reduce the impact of the trade union action launched by CEB engineers, the Ceylon Electricity Board's general manager issued a circular on the 26th of November. Through this circular, he extended the powers of electrical engineers in the country. Now, incidentally, a few days after that, that was on the 2nd of December, we witnessed a breakdown taking place in Kadwala. And the following day, in the morning, a complaint was filed with authorities stating that electrical engineers had not allowed this fault to be rectified. And the coincidence here is that on the same day, Sri Lanka experienced an island-wide power outage. And this was blamed on the breakdown in the transmission line running from Kothmale to Biagama. Now, a common word that we have often heard that officials often attribute is mafia whenever there is any issue coming up in the country. At that time, the Ceylon Electricity Board's general manager blamed this power outage and raised concerns, suspicion as to whether this power cut can be caused as a result of the trade union action. Apart from a ministerial level investigation that was launched into this, a complaint was even filed with the Criminal Investigations Department. As a result of these breakdowns, 2 power generating units at the Norachole coal power plant had malfunctioned, and the 3rd power generating unit at Norachole was inactive until the 30th of last month, and we even had to wait until Chinese experts came to the country to rectify this problem. Now, with the whole Norachole coal power plant being inactive, Sri Lanka lost 300 megawatts of electricity to the national grid. And due to that reason, we had to explore alternative sources of power. The first one being thermal-powered power plants, which meant that we had to purchase fuel in order to generate electricity. At the same time, Sri Lanka also explored the option of moving towards hydropower. However, water levels in reservoirs continue to decrease, raising concerns of what the future would look like as far as Sri Lanka's electricity sector is concerned. Now, interestingly, the Auditor General's Department published a report last month highlighting that there were several delays in terms of approving renewable energy projects. According to the report, they highlighted that 1,300 projects, more than 1,300 projects rather, were stalled since 2017. And if we look at the potential of these 1,300 projects, they can generate more than 4,000 megawatts of electricity. That's 4,018.84 megawatts of electricity to be precise. At the beginning of this segment, we highlighted the fact that Sri Lanka's daily demand for electricity is about 2,600 megawatts. Now, this means that Sri Lanka wouldn't have to rely on coal power plants or the other power plants in the country if the authorities had approved these 1,300 projects that have been stalled since 2017.
The Ministry Secretary had appointed a committee to study this matter. In the interim report, they said this wasn't a breakdown and that the Criminal Investigations Department should investigate this. What happened to the conspiracy behind the power cuts? The Norachole power plant fell inactive. They have built the Norachole power plant in a way that it shuts down during a blackout. They haven't taken action against this mafia. This is a planned conspiracy. A ship carrying 40,000 metric tons of diesel purchased from the Indian Oil Corporation reached Colombo today. Energy Minister Udaya Gamampilla and Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Gopal Bagle welcomed the ship. The payment for the oil shipment is to be made in 60 days.
As the entire world now knows, Sri Lanka is experiencing a huge foreign currency scarcity. As a result, being the most value importing commodity, in the recent past, we have been experiencing difficulty in financing oil imports. So, as a result, time to time we were in the risk of going dry. So, when we are in trouble, we sought support from our friends, so India came forward to help us. Indian government granted us a $500 million credit facility or line of credit to import petroleum products from India. In addition to that, while we were processing the line of credit, we informed Indian High Commissioner, who is a good friend of Sri Lanka, that we are in trouble. We can't wait until finalization of line of credit. We badly need diesel urgently because of the newly created demand from the power sector. We need diesel urgently. Promptly responding to our request, Indian High Commission arranged IOC to send us 40,000 tons of diesel on credit basis. So we are very grateful for India for helping us when we are needy. As the saying goes, friends in need are the friends in deed. So India has proven that India is a good friend of Sri Lanka, not by words but by deeds.
The name of this ship also indicates the similarity between the two countries, India and Sri Lanka. We have civilizational ties with Sri Lanka. Both our countries in the recent past have experienced the difficulties of COVID, and now as the global economy is trying to fight the challenges of COVID and its economic difficulties, India is committed to stand with Sri Lanka. And I'm very grateful to the Honorable Minister of Energy and our colleagues from CPC and CPSTL and other departments of Government of Sri Lanka who have found time today to come to this tanker.
By climbing onto the ship on which fuel has been purchased on credit for $70 million with the Indian High Commissioner, they have exposed Sri Lanka's bankruptcy to the world. The Energy Minister is acting as an Indian agent who betrays our country. The CPC is 61 years old. The Blumendal oil terminal is 61 years old. We have been obtaining fuel from it for 55 years. India has given us fuel 12 or 13 times. However, no minister or chairman went to welcome the fuel tanker. Cabinet approval was granted to import this fuel consignment. 40,000 metric tons of petrol is to be imported in the coming days on credit with cabinet approval. Where are we heading? Are we a colony of India?
49 නායකට කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය අනුමත කරලා. ඒකට මොකටද අපි යන්නේ? අපේ රට ඉන්දියාවටත් විදිතයක්ද?
You know that the US tried to gain control of our land through the MCC agreement and to use it for their purposes. But they couldn't do that. Now we can see that India is trying to do the same thing indirectly. India was able to gain a portion of the country's lands through the oil tank deal. Just like the agreement to give away 20,000 hectares of land belonging to the Kantale sugar factory and also the deal on the oil tank farm, yesterday the cabinet had approved a proposal to sign an agreement favorable for India's SP Sugar Company. There are serious conditions in that. The lands will belong to the company through this. The agreement also means that water from the Kantale River will be given to this company for sugarcane cultivation. This challenges the ownership the people have for the water resource. This company will also receive permission to open Southeast Asia's largest arak distillery. It's clear that these deals are filled with fraud and corruption.
Long queues were seen at several filling stations, including in Colombo today. Our correspondents reported that some fuel stations had run out of octane 92 petrol.
කඩවත ගණේ මුල්ල කාගම හැම තැනම බැලුවා. ඒක දෙන්නේ. මේ මොනවාද මේ කරන්නේ? සල්ලි වැඩියෙන් අපිට අඩු මිලට දීලා නැහැ මෙච්චර කල් මොකද දීලා තියනවාද? මොකද තියලා නැහැ. රට සංවර්ධනය කරනවලු අරක කරනවලු මේක කරනවලු පෙට්‍රල් ටිකක් ගාලා මනුස්සර ගමනක් යන්න විදියක් නැත්තම් මොකද්ද මේකේ සංවර්ධන කටයුතු? තාර දාලා පාරවල් හදලා වැඩක් නැහැ.
Ceylon Petroleum Corporation Chairman Sumit Vijay Singha told Newsfirst that the people should not panic over this situation. He said people are purchasing more fuel as a result of the panic.
Taking a look at another one of your headline-making stories, Maligakhand magistrate Tanuja Lakmali ordered for the release on bail of civil activist Shehan Malaka today. The suspect was ordered to pay a cash bill of 15,000 rupees and two sureties of 500,000 rupees each.
Civil activist Shehan Malaka was arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department under Section 120 of the Penal Code in Panadura yesterday. The CID argued in court that the suspect's remarks on the 17th of August last year over the April 21st attacks creates disaffection towards the government and among the people. They requested court for an order to remand the suspect who was arrested based on the Attorney General's advice following investigations into the complaints that they received. Appearing for the defence, President's counsel Neville Aberatna told court that remanding a civil activist under Section 120 of the Penal Code affects the entire Catholic community. He requested court to grant bail to the suspect as his remarks had not stirred any unrest in the country 8 months after they were made. Maliga Khanda magistrate Thanuja Lakmali then granted bail to the suspect and ordered to impound his passport. The court also ordered the suspect to appear at the CID between 9 a.m. and noon on the last Sunday of every month.
They recorded statements from me on 8 days for about 72 hours. I have no need to avoid the law. If anyone feels that they can suppress their voices through intimidation, then that is wrong. We tried to find a domestic solution to this problem, but the government isn't helping in that cause. In a few months, we will take this matter up with the international community.
තව මාසයක් දෙකක් ඇතුළත අපි අනිවාර්යෙන් මේක ජාත්‍යන්තරයට අරන් යනවාමයි.
මෙහිදී අනෙකුත් කාරණය තමයි වැදගත් වෙන කාරණා.
They said the suspect had attempted to flee when the Criminal Investigations Department had arrested him, but we informed the court that they have arrested the suspect unlawfully and that 5 men who arrived on a white van clad in civil attire had arrested the suspects. The CID interpreted this situation, arguing that the suspect had attempted to flee, but the court understood the reality. We have supported the CID's investigations by providing statements on 8 occasions. Under the provisions of the Bail Act, the court ordered to grant bail to Shehan Malaka after considering our submissions.
අප පනතේ ප්‍රතිපාදන ප්‍රකාරව මේ වරද සම්බන්ධයෙන් අද දින ෂෙහාන් මාලක සහෝදරයාව අප මත මුදා හැර.
The Maliga Khanda Magistrates Court ordered Shehan Malaka to appear in court again on the 29th of March.
Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, expressed these views to the media on the arrest of civil activist Shehan Malaka.
A group that arrived in a white van had kidnapped him on the middle of the road. We wouldn't know where Shehan Malaka was if it had not been live streamed on Facebook. Fortunately, he had the courage to stream it live to the country when he was kidnapped. There is an ethical way for the police to arrest a person. Officers must wear their uniform and must use a police jeep when arresting suspects. They must also inform the suspect of the reason for their arrest. But we can consider this as a kidnapping, as no such information was provided. I interpret this as an unruly incident that doesn't fit into a democratic society. Therefore, we wish to condemn this incident. I believe that Shehan Malaka's rights were violated in this incident. The government is making representations to the Human Rights Council seeking relief. We have a question as to whether they have brains considering what they are doing. In a democratic country, the right to freedom of speech and expressing one's own opinion is a basic fundamental right. We hope the courts will help in protecting those rights. While the perpetrators of the April 21st attacks are roaming freely, they are trying to silence those who are seeking justice over this attack and to suppress them. I vehemently condemn this. This isn't what we expected from the Attorney General. He is a public servant. We would like to remind him that he is not a henchman of politicians. The Attorney General, who has failed to implement the recommendations of the Commission that probed the April 21st attacks, is now advising for the arrest of those who are demanding for justice. We wish to remind the Attorney General that he doesn't have the right to do that. An Attorney General or an IGP isn't appointed to appease politicians. They are holding these positions to serve the people and to protect the rule of law. If they don't fulfill those responsibilities, we are ashamed of that. I wish to call upon the people to identify the conspiracies carried out by this government and to respond to them.
කුමන්ත්‍රණකාරී වැඩ හඳුනා ගන්න කියලා හඳුනාගෙන ඒට අවශ්‍ය වෙලාවට සුදුසු ප්‍රතිචාරය දක්වන්න කියලා.
We are taking steps to do that. We can't reveal it now, but we are preparing a plan.
The Colombo Civil Appellate Court today ordered for the petition filed by former President Maithripala Sirisena to acquit him from all cases filed against him demanding for compensation with regard to the April 21st attacks to be taken up on the 9th of March. The order was issued after the petition was taken up in the Civil Appellate Courts today before Justices Frank Gunawardana and Saman Veeraman. Further consideration of the petition was postponed today after it was revealed in court that the respondents had not been given proper notice of the case. Sri Lanka police said statements have been recorded from 21 people pertaining to the attack carried out on the residence of freelance journalist Chamudita Samaravikrama. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Thalduwa said investigations into the incident are being conducted under the supervision of the Senior Superintendent of Mount Lavinia and another Superintendent of Police. A high-ranking police officer said the footage obtained from CCTV cameras on roads in Piliyandala were checked by 60 police officers today to locate the vehicle used by the group of suspects to arrive at Samaravikrama's residence. No one was apprehended with regard to the incident.
If the government fails to investigate an incident like this, they cannot say that they have ensured national security when there is no security for the public or the journalists. We have skilled police in this country, including the Criminal Investigation Department. They cannot do anything about this unless the government supports them.
Chamudita Samaravikrama අපේ සහෝදර මාධ්‍යවේදියා.
We strongly condemn the attack carried out on journalist Chamudita Samaravikrama. Those who are behind these attacks are cowards who hide behind toilets. This incident shows the pathetic side of a pathetic faction of the society.
අසූචි ප්‍රහාරය එල්ල කිරීමෙන් වහනය වෙන්නේ කුණු සමාජ කණ්ඩායමක කුණු සමාජ පිරිස්වල දුර්ගන්ධය කියලා කියන එක අපි හැමෝටම පැහැදිලි කාරණාවක්.
අපි මේ මාධ්‍ය හමුවේදී අහන ප්‍රශ්න සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපිව CID එකට අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවට රැගෙන ගොස් ප්‍රශ්න කිරීමට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවද? එසේ ප්‍රශ්න කිරීමට උත්සාහ කළොත් ඔබතුමා අපව ගලවා ගන්නවාද?
මේක පොලිස් රාජ්‍යයක් නෙමෙයි.
This is not a police state. We must accept that the police will not summon and ask questions over the queries that are posed at the cabinet media briefing. If there is such a situation, let me know about that. I will join you if there is any issue.
දෙන්නම් අතුලත් එක යන්න. ඔය ප්‍රශ්නයක් මතුවුණොත්.
දැන් එතකොට ඊයේ දවසේ සහ අද දවසේ විශාල දුරකථන ඇමතුම් ප්‍රමාණයක් මටත් ලැබුණා. අපි ඍජුව ප්‍රශ්න කරන හින්දා රජයෙන් ඍජු ප්‍රශ්න කිරීම වලට යන්න එපා. චමිතුත සහෝදරයාට උන දේ ඔබටත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා.
ප්‍රාන්තරවාදී සංකල්ප තේරුම් ගන්න බැරි.
These issues arise in a society that doesn't understand how democratic concepts work. If anyone is being questioned for revealing the truth to the people, that is a serious situation. That raises the question on whether it's a healthy democracy.
මේ කාරණාවක්. ඒතර ඒ රටේ ප්‍රාන්තරවාදයේ නිරෝගීද කියලා කියන ප්‍රශ්නේ මතුවෙන්නේ.
UN Resident Coordinator in Sri Lanka, Hannah Singer, says journalists and activists play a fundamental role in ensuring a democratic society. In a tweet, she said that their protection is vital to ensure freedom of expression, transparency and accountability. She added, quote unquote, the silencing of critical voices undermines public debate, freedom and human rights of everyone. Meanwhile, President's Counsel M.A. Sumanthiran said that Sri Lanka has made promises to the international community about its human rights obligations, but has failed to live up to them.
The High Commissioner for Human Rights will give her report in a few days' time. I think we expect the report to be pretty harsh. Sri Lanka has made several promises and has not lived up to the promises that it made. One notable example is the Prevention of Terrorism Act, acknowledged worldwide as a draconian piece of legislation. Many people have suffered under that act. They have tabled an amending bill in Parliament that doesn't really amend anything. So the government not only trying to fool the UN Human Rights Council, it's fooling its people, it's in fact fooling itself.
Meanwhile, Sri Lankan envoy in South Africa has sought support of Southern African countries at United Nations Human Rights Council. High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to South Africa, Sirisena Amarasekara, held several meetings with government officials of South Africa and envoys of countries accredited to South Africa to discuss the achievements made by Sri Lanka in matters on human rights, focusing on the upcoming UNHRC sessions and recognizing the importance of the African region where the countries have emerged as a cohesive group of nations. He met High Commissioner of Namibia, Ambassador of Zimbabwe, High Commissioner of Malawi and Charge of the Fair of Switzerland in South Africa. in this regard. At these meetings, High Commissioner Amarasekara emphasized the importance of a domestic mechanism to resolve internal conflicts within the domestic socio-political environment rather than an imposed mechanism by external parties.
Emergencies Act invoked. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau turns against protesters.
Will the strike action launched by health trade unions continue? What happened to the enjoining order that was issued by the High Court? We'll bring you the details after this short commercial break.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Register today for a Zoom workshop on new technology in Sinhala. First session at 3 p.m. on the 17th of February. Coding for the betterment of life. Register by 0777 600 20.
Organized by Slit Institute.
TechBus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
Welcome back to the news. The Colombo Stock Exchange says it will allow shares to be listed in foreign currencies.
Shares at the Colombo Stock Exchange are usually listed in rupees. In a circular, the Colombo Stock Exchange said shares can be listed in foreign currency. It said the aim would be to promote the Colombo Stock Exchange as an attractive venue for companies to raise capital in multi-currency. The new regulations state that a company should be a foreign exchange earner that had earned foreign currency up to at least 50% of its revenue for 3 years.
Healthcare workers decided to call off their strike action after 9 consecutive days today. The decision was announced at a media briefing held this afternoon.
සෞඛ්‍ය වෘත්තීයවේදීන්ගේ සම්මේලනයේ විදිහට අපි පහුගිය 7 වෙනිදා ආරම්භ කරපු වැඩවර්ධනය
We have decided to suspend the strike which began on the 7th of this month for 14 days from 7 a.m. tomorrow. We are expecting the President's intervention into this. We can't accept any of the agreements reached regarding our 7 requests as a complete solution. Therefore, we asked the Minister of Health to withdraw his statement in this regard, or else come to a public discussion with us. We can prove you wrong.
කරපු ප්‍රකාශය ඉල්ලා අස් කරගන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් ප්‍රසිද්ධ සංවාදයකට අපිත් එක්ක එන්න. ඔබ කියන කාරණා වැරදි බව අපිට ඔප්පු කරන්නට හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. 8 වෙනිදා සාකච්ඡාවේදී ගුරු සේවාවට සාපේක්ෂව
During the discussion on the 8th, the Minister failed to resolve the salary anomalies compared to the teacher's service. However, during yesterday's discussion, the Minister of Health agreed to present a proposal to the Cabinet next Monday in this regard. The Health Minister agreed to present a Cabinet paper to the Cabinet. This is why we decided to suspend the strike action. The Finance Minister yesterday informed Cabinet that there is no basis in the protests being carried out against the perceived attempts to impose a 25% surcharge tax on the Employees Trust Fund and the Employees Provident Fund. The official communique of the Cabinet media briefing states that the surcharge bill does not propose for the EPF and the ETF to be subject to the tax. He clearly said that when the surcharge tax bill is passed in Parliament, we will move an amendment to the definition of a company and exempt the EPF and ETF from the surcharge tax. The bill has already been tabled in Parliament. The bill will be amended during the committee stage. Do not have any doubt about this. The budget proposal put forward by the government for the 2020-2021 financial year states that a surcharge tax of 20% will be levied from companies earning a profit of more than 2 billion rupees. However, despite the budget proposal stating this, the proposed surcharge tax bill proposes a different tax rate. According to the bill, the surcharge tax will be levied from any individual, partnership or company whose taxable income calculated in accordance with the provisions of the Inland Revenue Act No. 24 of 2017 exceeds 2 billion rupees for the year of assessment commencing on the 1st of April 2020 at a rate of 25%. The employees' funds are said to be subject to the surcharge tax according to the definition of a company that has been included in the surcharge tax bill. According to the bill, a company has the same definition mentioned in the Inland Revenue Act. According to the Inland Revenue Act, the EPF and the ETF are included in the definition of a company.
Samagi Jana Balawege lawmakers are urging the government to call off the surcharge tax bill.
The
budget speech isn't the law. A legal gazette must be published in line with the budget speech, and that must be tabled in Parliament for approval. That is when it becomes legal. According to the gazette they have published, the 25% surcharge tax will apply on the employees' provident fund. If they are removing it, a new gazette must be published. That gazette must mention that it will be applicable to entities recognized under the Companies Act of 2007. What we understand is that they have been caught red-handed as they tried to hide this. Now they say that it is a mistake. That isn't enough. They must reverse this gazette and publish a new gazette.
The central bank's former deputy governor, Dr. W.A. Wijewardena, has said that it would not be apt to apply the surcharge tax on the employees' provident fund.
Some ministers are saying they will exempt the EPF from that. That doesn't solve the problem. They will exempt the EPF and continue to impose the tax on what they call the 62 super rich companies. However, they don't understand that it is ordinary people who are employed in these 62 entities. These super rich companies also can't pay the tax. That is because they have made investments and paid dividends from profits that they generated from 2020 to 2021. They will have to sell or mortgage their assets to obtain a loan and settle this tax. These companies are affected. It will ultimately affect their employees as well. They will also stop recruitments. A massive issue will arise as a result of imposing retrospective taxes. My argument is that retrospective taxes are not suitable. They must be scrapped.
The
National Trade Union Centre expressed their views on this today.
Don't try to play tricks. Although you may deceive the cabinet, don't do the same to the people. We are not asking to scrap the bill without a reason. The government is trying to obtain a portion of the annual bonus payments received by employees. If an employee receives 200,000, the government is trying to obtain 50,000 of that. By applying retrospective taxes, the government is trying to pillage the workers. They are entrusting the treasury with people who have cases against their name. And ultimately, the treasury is bringing forward bills that loot the workers.
Gum Mather came across the old Kataputa village in Hingaragoda in 2020 when traversing from door to door. By then, clean drinking water was a luxury to 600 families. Kidney patients were on the rise with a water purification system insufficient to meet their demands. Gum Mather came forth once more to alleviate their woes. Gum Mather, for the people, by the people.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa has accused the government of continuing to deceive the people. He expressed these views at a public meeting organized by the Samagi Jana Balawege in Hasalaka, Ududumbara.
අද මේ රට පාලනය කරන්නේ ජනතාව 24 පෑම 365 දවසම අන්දවන කප්පිත්තන් ඉන්න ආණ්ඩුව.
Today the country is being ruled by a group that deceives the people all the time. They are experts in deceiving the people. They are good at lying to the people. They are champions when it comes to ruining the lives of the people as well. Recently, the IMF spokesperson said the Sri Lankan government has not asked for any help to solve the economic crisis. But the person with 7 brains in this government says he had already spoken with the IMF about it. Who is speaking the truth here? Is it the IMF spokesperson or is it the finance minister who claims to have 7 brains? Can you remember the time when they wanted the people to drink a cup of tea without sugar and the time they asked you to cook without chili powder? Today, this government wants farmers to cultivate without fertilizer. They are expecting us to stay without electricity as well. The people are waiting for an election. Once they get the opportunity to cast their vote, we have a strong belief that the people will chase away this government.
But as things stand, if this means that you miss the French Open, is that a price you'd be willing to pay?
Yes, that is the price that I'm willing to pay.
And if it means that you miss Wimbledon this year, again, that's a price you're willing to pay?
Yes.
Russia says its troops have completed their training drills in Belarus and will begin returning to their places of regular deployment. Ukraine, however, says they will believe in de-escalation when they see a withdrawal. News First, Azra Ahsan brings you a comprehensive report on this developing story.
Russia says the withdrawal of some forces from Ukraine's borders were planned and stresses it will continue to move troops around its territory as it sees fit. Kremlin spokesman has accused the US of fueling the crisis by warning repeatedly of an impending invasion, to the point where Peskov said President Vladimir Putin had made jokes about it.
Tomorrow, that is the 16th of February, Ukraine has declared tomorrow as a day of unity. Can you imagine why? This is mainly because the West has said that Russia will invade Ukraine tomorrow. How big is the risk of invasion? Russia says that plans are afoot to remove the military personnel along the borders of Ukraine once drills are completed. But countries like America and the United Kingdom say that if the Russian president wants, he can order to invade Ukraine even within minutes. Russia has condemned these statements, calling them dangerous lies.
It raises hopes of possible de-escalation, but large-scale drills continue and it's unclear how many units are being withdrawn. In a defiant speech to the nation yesterday, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky declared 16th of February, a date cited by US officials as a possible day on which Russia could attack a day of unity.
Великий народе, великої країни.
Unlike the pandemic 2 years ago, today we clearly understand all the challenges we face and what to do about them. We are confident, but not self-confident. We understand all the risks. We are constantly monitoring the situation, working out different scenarios, preparing decent responses to all possible aggressive actions. We have something to respond with. We have a great army. Our guys have unique combat experience and modern weapons. This is an army many times stronger than 8 years ago. We are confident in our armed forces, but our military must also feel our support, our cohesion and our unity. The foothold of our army is the confidence of their own people and a strong economy.
Намагаються позбавити нас права самостійно визначати зовнішньополітичний курс.
The German Chancellor visited Ukraine and pledged Germany's support. But was Ukraine expecting lethal weaponry from Germany? However, German Chancellor was very firm on the stance that weaponry won't be provided to Ukraine, but he has also said that Germany has helped Ukraine in financial terms as much as it has required.
Talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have begun in Moscow. It is the latest meeting in weeks of diplomatic efforts to defuse tensions over Ukraine. During opening remarks, Putin says, quote-unquote, "Unfortunately, we will devote a significant portion of our time to issues related to the situation in Europe and to security."
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has taken the unprecedented step of invoking the Emergencies Act to crack down on anti-vaccine mandate protests.
Justin Trudeau said the scope of the measures would be time-limited, reasonable and proportionate, and would not see the military deployed. With no need for a court order, banks will be able to freeze personal accounts of anyone linked with the protests. Hundreds of demonstrators remain in Canada's capital city. On Sunday, law enforcement cleared anti-mandate protesters at the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor, a critical pathway for Canada-US trade, after a week-long stalemate. What began as a rally against a new rule that all truckers must be vaccinated to cross the US-Canada border or quarantine upon return has grown into a broader challenge to all COVID health restrictions.
I want to be very clear. The scope of these measures will be time-limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions. The police will be given more tools to restore order in places where public assemblies can constitute illegal and dangerous activities, such as blockades and occupations as seen in Ottawa, the Ambassador Bridge, and elsewhere. These tools include strengthening their ability to impose fines or imprisonment.
Critics have noted that the Prime Minister voiced support for farmers in India who blocked major highways to New Delhi for a year in 2021, saying at the time, quote, "Canada will always be there to defend the right of peaceful protests," end quote.
Novak Djokovic has said he would rather miss out on future tennis trophies than be forced to get a COVID-19 vaccine.